Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome along to possibly one of the worst weeks of my life in terms of podcasting, etc., etc. I hate home improvements. I really do. I hate them. But anyway, hello, how are you? I hope you're all well. I hope you're all doing good. I am joined today by Ash. Ash, how are you?
Yeah, no, I'm doing all right today, Martin. Obviously, like most people who follow football, I've been watching the Diogo Jota story with real sadness this morning. So it's made it a bit of a strange day when you kind of couple that with Rangers now finally getting things done, and there's a bit of excitement there, but
Yeah.
definitely a dark cloud, I think, over football this morning.
Yeah, I mean, look, all laughing and joking and my wee intro quirks aside. I was speaking to my missus about it, and it just goes to show you that you just don't know what's going to happen in life. Ash, 28 years old, world at his feet, playing for one of the biggest football clubs in the world, and something tragic like that happens.
It does, and I think you kind of you think when you're successful and you've got lots of money in the bank, and it goes to show that it doesn't matter what you do in life, that actually you just don't know when your time's up. And we obviously know him as a footballer, incredible player, lit up the Premier League for a number of years now, coming off the back of a really amazing campaign with Liverpool. And all of that doesn't really matter because he's obviously a brother, a husband, a son, a father, etc. So it's just that the whole thing is really, really tragic. And you're right, it brings home that we all take things for granted, but yeah, maybe we should try and live each day as best we can because you don't know when your time's up.
100%. And obviously, condolences to family, friends, all that. It's a tragic day for football when you see
Yeah.
stuff like this happen. And again, yeah, do you know what? I do this every single day. I come on here and I speak about Rangers and we talk about football players like Tav and we need to get rid of him and he's rubbish and he's this and Matondo and this. At the end of the day, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing compared to your health and family. So yeah, 100% condolences to Jota's family, friends at this horrific time. And it's not something that's nice to talk about because you always feel, oh, well, I say the wrong thing, or you don't want it to come across hokey in any way. But yeah, tragic news, absolutely. Let's talk some
Liverpool as
Rangers
well.
then.
Sorry, Martin. Sorry, just
Yeah.
to say there, obviously the Liverpool piece as well. They've obviously as a fan base had a lot of tragedies to deal with, and then this is another one to add to the list. So, regardless of football rivalries, etc., I'm sure every football fan is thinking about them as well today. As you say, more importantly, his family and friends and loved ones, but it must be devastating for the fans as well, and casts a cloud over the football league next year. So, yeah, you're right. There's no easy way to transition away from that, but everyone, I'm sure, passes on their condolences.
Yeah, and his brother, of course, as well, who
Of
sadly
course, yeah, yeah.
passed in the car crash as well. Yeah, okay, so let's move on to Rangers, Ash. And I mean, loads of people complaining about not a lot of business done here, not a lot of business done there. I think it just goes to show, and I did say this the other day, to be fair to me, and pat myself on the back, that I'm going to trust this board until such times as they give me a reason not to. And it just goes to show all those transfer links to all these different players, and all of a sudden, boom, not so much the Rothwell one, because we kind of had a wee inkling about that, but the
Yeah.
Fernandez one just out of nowhere, out of nowhere.
Absolutely. And I think, I've heard people say, or the question's been posed, are we concerned at the lack of activity? And I think most people kind of agreed, maybe concern wasn't the right word, but disappointment. I think we just wanted to start to see some new bodies come in the door and we were hoping that things would move at a quicker pace. But I think everyone trusted that work was going on in the background. And as evidenced in the last 24 hours, they've obviously got a lot of irons in the fire. And even with reports developing today, I think we're going to see probably another few players before the end of next week. So kudos to the board for doing it in the background and Thelwell and Purdy getting it done. Proof will be in the pudding when we actually see them play, but I'm much more comfortable with where we are now, heading towards the Panathinaikos game than I was maybe last week.
Do you think this adds another few thousand onto the attendance on Sunday?
That's a really interesting one. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the tickets. I don't know what the situation is, but I wouldn't have thought so. I think everyone's pretty excited about the takeover and pretty excited about the general direction that the club is going in. Yes, it would have been nice to see a few more faces before that game, but I think irrespective it'll be a decent turnout because people are keen to see what Martin's going to do. How's he going to line up? Although it's all going to change before the competitive games start, it's the first reference point we'll have to judge him. So no, I think folk are also just desperate to get back to Ibrox after what feels like a long break.
And I didn't actually know this, but Rangers on tour, there is a subway strike this weekend. So getting to Ibrox will be affected. All right, I didn't know that. But there we go. So if you're travelling to Ibrox by subway, either have a wee look and see what's going on, or maybe try and make other arrangements if there's a strike on. What's your thoughts on, we'll come back to Fernandez in a wee second. What's your thoughts on Rothwell? Because I know that you keep a close eye on a lot of things English football. Have you seen much of him? What do you think he'll add to the team, etc., etc.?
So I'll be honest, I watched a little bit of Leeds last season and he wasn't someone that massively stood out to me. But I think it's probably because he doesn't necessarily do the, in inverted commas, sexy part of the game. He doesn't chip in with loads of goals and he doesn't get loads and loads of assists. But I kind of think of him as a player who gets the assist before the assist, if that makes sense. So, one of the words
secondary assist, they're called now.
Yeah, that might be the technical way to do it. There you go. There's me showing my layman's hat. He's, to me, a lot of the things I've read is progressive comes out in terms of he's always looking to play the ball into attacking areas. He's always looking to be on the front foot and drive forward with the ball, etc. So he really strikes me as more of a kind of box-to-box midfielder, which I think will complement Raskin very well. One thing that sorry, Lyndon there. One thing that hasn't been part of Raskin's game, but actually has developed over the last few months of the season, was he doesn't necessarily get in and around the box enough for me, and I think that's something that Rothwell is a bit more comfortable doing. So won't it be nice if we've got two players that can do that? If the two of them are able to play together. I think the other thing that Rothwell will offer as well is, it sounds kind of cliche in what you'd expect, but he's got an engine. I think he'll help Raskin move around the pitch because too often last year I felt like Raskin was doing a lot of that himself because Dio, we know, tires after 65, 70 minutes. He doesn't see the game out, whereas if a little bit of that physical pressure is taken off Raskin and Rothwell can help with that, hopefully it frees up his game as well. So I think that, coupled with the likes of the set piece qualities and stuff, he's a very good signing and someone who I think we've lacked in previous seasons. So I'm quite excited about it. He's a winner as well, which I think is something our dressing room lacks.
I was just about to bring that up actually. I think it might have been Russell Martin who said it, that he's coming from back-to-back promotions in his last two campaigns. And you just mentioned it there, Ash, but that's something that we have badly lacked, winners in the team.
Yeah, 100%. And he's actually won at a couple of clubs where there is a bit of pressure. I know the pressure at Rangers is different to most other environments in world football, but Southampton, I think, see themselves as a Premier League club. He was able to play a role in getting them back up to the Premiership. And then you had Leeds last season where it was really win or bust in terms of the fans' expectations. Not going up last year would have been a disaster. And Rothwell played a really important part of helping them get there. So he can handle that pressure. I think he walks into our dressing room with a little bit of credibility. Helping two teams get to the Premier League is fantastic. So, yeah, I think he ticks a lot of boxes, and I think he will be a really good lieutenant for Russell Martin. He understands how Martin wants to play. He understands what he's asking of his team, and hopefully he can help guide a few players on the pitch as to what Martin's looking for, because I think that'll be important to help kind of reduce some of the teething problems we're likely to see with a new style of play.
Yeah. I just say a massive welcome to Blue Fox, who has become a CEO member on YouTube. Thank you very much for the support, Blue, and I hope you enjoy all the extra content and stuff. Starting with the WWE 2K25 hosts versus members, I'm going to absolutely do Chaz, and that's Rabble out of context again. I'm going to knock him out. That's better. Tonight on the WWE 2K25, which will be live, by the way, on both YouTube and Patreon. It'll be live on both. And then, of course, we've got the watch along at the weekend. Myself and Alex back for the watch alongs. We might get Ash to do some reporting for Ibrox. You know how good that signal is? You know how good that signal is at Ibrox?
I'll be with Trev, so he'll have all his little gadgets and gear. So I'm sure if there's Wi-Fi to be found, Trev's your man to get it.
Well, Does he bring his loft to Ibrox, does he?
If he brought his loft to Ibrox, we wouldn't be season ticket buddies. So thankfully, the loft stays at home.
Did you manage to get a seat switch?
Yes, we did. We're up Govan Rear 1, Sandy Jardine 1, sorry now. So we were in the club deck, but we used to be in the Govan Rear and moved to the club deck, and now we've moved back. So quite high up, but it gives you a good view of the game. So I'm just pleased to be back in that stand.
For me, the Govan Rear's the best place you can sit at Ibrox. I think it's the best seats by a mile, because the main stand, albeit it's a beautiful stand and good view, when you're in the middle tier, you've got that roof over you, and it sometimes feels to me that it just takes a wee bit away for the atmosphere sometimes. Especially when you're right up the back.
That's it. And I think ideally, like in the Govan, you want to be a bit more central. We're kind of on the outskirts, but on the positive side, we're closer to the away fans, so there's a bit of stick going on there, so that's quite good. So now looking forward to getting back and not having to strap an oxygen tank on to get to the top of the club deck. That will be wonderful as well. So yeah, result all round.
And you're in beside Brian. He's in GR1.
Oh, is he? Right.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to say hello to him then. Hopefully he's there on Sunday.
Well, most of the times, to be fair, he's not compos mentis when he goes to the games.
Got it.
So just be careful with that. Just be careful with that.
Well,
although apparently the madman that sits behind him's gone. So you should be safe.
Or to me, it just sounds like if I want to be top up during the game, Brian's the man to talk to. That's the way I think about it. So I'll keep that in the locker.
Could not confirm nor deny that. Actually, could not confirm. Right, this Fernandez boy, right, coming from Peterborough. I've never seen him play. Never in my life, right? My football knowledge, by the way, is ridiculously poor, right? But I've never seen him play. Rumours going about that there's possible 3.5 million that we've paid for this boy, right? Now, I don't have a clue what the club have paid. I don't expect the club to come out and tell anybody what they've paid, as they probably shouldn't. But if it is anywhere near that, Ash, there's also the chat that he's going to be coming in to start in the academy and be an academy. He's 23 years old. And if you pay between, let's just be conservative, right? If you pay between 2 and 3.5 million for a 23-year-old, Ash, he's not going into the academy.
I'd be very surprised if that was the plan for him. But what I would say is everything I like you, I haven't watched a lot of him. I've seen him in a couple of games, a couple of high-profile games last year he played in, EFL Cup final against Birmingham. And I think he had a game in the FA Cup against Everton, which, interestingly, you wonder if that's where the Thelwell and Purdy link has come from, or where the interest stemmed from, because I think in both of those games he played really well. But everything I've kind of seen and read about this guy is that whilst he's not an academy player, I do think he's a bit of a project. I do think that he's one we've brought in to develop on the basis that he's got a lot of kind of raw attributes that actually, if you can coach and develop, then he could be a top player, and probably a player that if we did that, he would be out of our reach if he did that somewhere else. So you get him in now and you spend a bit of time trying to get him to that level. But I have to say, I'd be really surprised based on the Peterborough fans' feedback if he was going to be a starter next year. I can't see that being what he's coming in to do.
I mean, I would take what Peterborough fans are saying with a slight pinch of salt. See, when it's all negative from a club that a guy's basically started all the games for, then I would always take that with a pinch of salt. But flipping that, should we be excited as a fan base then that the current Rangers board are willing to spend upwards of 3 million, 3.5 million on a player who's not necessarily going to be guaranteed first team football, and they see him as more of a prospect player? Does that mean that we've now opened the door to being able to attract maybe a higher caliber player, I'll try English, right? Higher caliber of young player who's going to cost a little bit more, who's not necessarily going to be for the first team? Should we be excited by that?
I think so. I think it indicates that they're willing to invest. I think, a lot of maybe questions have been thrown at the hierarchy over the last week or so, saying, where's the long-term strategy? We've obviously signed Aarons on loan, and we've signed a 30-year-old in Rothwell. And the question was, well, what happens in the seasons ahead? And I think that Fernandez is definitely a player that really kind of links into that model. We're willing to put the money in now, bring him in, perhaps not announcing the fee is partly to kind of take that spotlight and that pressure off of him. Because you're right, if it comes out we paid 3.5, the expectation at Rangers would be, well, he's a first team player and he's got to be excellent. Look at Bajrami. Whereas I think if you allow him to play a year, get some minutes, I expect him to play, but not as not at the first name on the team sheet every week. Get a little bit of exposure to kind of adjust into playing for Rangers, the expectations of Rangers, the way that Russell Martin wants to play, with a plan that perhaps from next season he's a more regular first teamer. And maybe that's a bit of a contingency plan for the likes of Suter, etc., who we don't necessarily think are going to be here long term. So, no, I think it's positive. I think, but what you've got to complement that with is we do need a starting centre half now. So I'm fine with him coming in on the deal that he's on, as long as there is a plan to bring a first teamer into that spot. Because if not, I'm still concerned that we're very, very short going into next season.
Well, one of those rumoured, and I want to ask you about loans in a wee second, but Stu Kelsall, Nasser Jigga, I really don't know how to pronounce that, would get some valuable experience at a massive club like Rangers. We haven't seen a whole lot of him at Wolves. Now, from what I've seen, he's either a centre-back or a full-back. I'm not 100% sure which one he is, but more so seems to be a centre-back that we're bringing in, just on a straight loan. This exact same as Max Aarons. So firstly, thoughts on Nasir, and secondly, on these loans, and I've made this point a few times now, it doesn't bother me so much that we're bringing in maybe 2, possibly 3 players just on a straight loan who go back to their clubs at the end of the season. It's almost like 90s football again, isn't it? But should we, I don't think as a support we should be too worried, because you can't fix everything in the one window, and loans can be a massive help.
And I think we'll talk about DJ in a minute, but I think on the loan thing, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, if we needed 2 or 3 players to fine tune what was already a pretty good squad, and we were bringing in 2 or 3 loan players, then I would be concerned. But the reality is, I think we probably need 8 players to come in to change that first team squad profile. And the whole point to me in a successful loan is that you go and get a player that you otherwise couldn't have afforded. And I think that's definitely the case with DJ. I mean, he came for, and apologies if we're butchering his name, folks. We'll try and get the pronunciation right at some point when we know how to do it. Wolves paid £10 million for him 6 months ago. I don't think there's any realistic prospect he's going to be a long-term player at Rangers. But if Martin's looked at it and he's looked at where he needs to invest in the squad, and he's decided there's a player that's available on loan that can come in as a first teamer, do a job for us, which will allow me to invest in other parts of the pitch, I'm entirely comfortable with that. He comes in, he has a good season, he develops, he goes back to Wolves, and that gives us a season to find somebody longer term who can slot into that position. So I have no issue with loans as long as they're of that kind of structure. Now, in terms of him himself, I do believe that he's predominantly a centre-back, and he's actually one that I'd be really, really excited about. He's played for a few different European clubs. I think he's played nearly a dozen games in the Champions League proper. So he's got, something about him to have done that. I think he did that over at Red Star. And he's actually been out on loan a couple of times. And every time he's gone out on loan, he's been successful. He won a cup double with Red Star. He won, I think, Young Player of the Year there as well. So to me, he's someone that can slot in on loan. He can adapt quite quickly to a new environment, and he can contribute straight away, which is absolutely what we need. So I think if he's one that we could get over the line for even a year's loan, that would be hugely positive.
Yeah. And Dell's actually asking, and I suppose it's a good question, actually. Does it worry you, Ash, that we seem to be shopping mostly in the English market? We've done this before, haven't we? Where we've kind of shopped in the kind of Championship, League One. I don't think we've shopped in League Two. I could be wrong. But the kind of the lower English market, does that worry you at all? That's where everything seems to be heading?
I think it's maybe just a case of necessity at the moment. Obviously, Purdy and Thelwell have got really good links down in England. They also have access, I would anticipate, to some of the scouting and stuff that Leeds have done in that market. They'll obviously scour their own domestic market to see what players are available. I imagine there's a bit of information exchange going on there. So I can see why in a window where we have to do a lot of work, you maybe go with tried and tested in terms of your knowledge base. It's not probably a model that I would love long term, because I think we've had really, really mixed success with players coming from England. That being said, as Rangers on Tours just highlighted, we've found a few gems as well. So I think I'm comfortable with it being part of the overall policy. I think it's going to be quite heavy in this window just because of we're up against it with time now. But I think long term, I would like to see us continue to develop what Coppin did, which is to look further afield, Moroccan markets, South American markets, etc. Because I think that's where you can really make your money. When you bring players in from England, there's a lot of risk involved because wages and transfer fees tend to be higher than they would in some other European leagues. So I think it's more a case of necessity than long-term strategy.
I nearly done it. I nearly spoke while I was on mute. Yeah, possibly. And then maybe in January or whatever, we might see some scouting coming from a little bit further afield. A super chatting from brand new channel member Blue Fox. Thank you very much. Ash, what team we thinking we'll see on Sunday? New signings to start. Will Igaman Dio be part of it? I would be. I asked David Edgar this last night. Do you think if there's any omissions, i.e., Yilmaz, Igaman, Dio, etc., do we think that that's them possibly leaving the club? I would imagine if Igaman isn't part of the squad on Sunday, I think that's a barometer, Ash, of where he'll be. Players like Dio and stuff, I'm not so sure. But obviously, with all the rumours going about Igaman, I would be amazed if he's in the team on Sunday.
Yeah, I would. If Igaman is in and around the squad on Sunday, I would suggest the reports we've heard about Lille being close to agreeing a deal are nonsense. I think that deal is pretty much done. I think it's just a case of the last few bits to be agreed between the clubs. In fairness, somebody else could come in and trump Lille, but I think Igaman's camp, without him being disrespectful to the club, because I don't think he has, I think his camp have made it pretty clear that he's happy to move on this summer. So I think there will be a deal to be had. So I can't see them risking him playing for obvious reasons. In terms of the wider squad, I would think he'll probably play around as you'd expect, in a friendly. I expect Dio to be maybe on the bench, the likes of Yilmaz, etc. A lot of it will depend on how fit these guys are after the summer break, and obviously some of them played internationally, so only came back this week, so they're not going to take any risks with him. I probably wouldn't put too much stock into the lineup on Sunday. I think a few of the new guys probably will be in and around, but I think you'll see a good mixture of kids and some experienced players that have been there for a couple of weeks doing pre-season. I don't think it will mean much when it comes to competitive football.
No, and JD, you're absolutely right, man. On it as on life support. I don't see what happens when you do work in the house. It just absolutely completely affects your internet. Lyndon's asking, and I probably shouldn't bring any of Lyndon's comments up, to be fair, but he is a channel member. Any truth in the Dio rumours, in your opinion? Ash, I've not got a clue. I've not got a clue if there's any truth in them or not. But there's 9 times out of 10, there's no smoke without fire, is there?
No, and I think Dio's a player that's been on a few clubs' radar for a little while now. I wonder a bit when I look at the likes of Rothwell. I maybe some of the attributes that he brings, I actually thought maybe that's what I expected to see more from Dio of, and maybe that's unfair, but that was when I read about Dio coming into the club, and I remember his first few games for us when he was very much involved in the attack and play, scoring a couple of goals, etc. And he maybe just hasn't kicked on the way that we would have hoped him to, albeit he's had some great performances in Europe and against Celtic. So I'm not saying that he's been poor by any stretch, but he's maybe not quite hit the heights that I had hoped. So I'm not surprised there'll be clubs sniffing around. I don't think a deal's close just based on the lack of noise about that. But he's one I think if the club got a good offer, he's one that maybe when you look at the midfield we've got and the replacements that have come in, maybe he's one the club would let go for the right price. Oh, yellow card time. We've done it.
Unbelievable.
After you just caught yourself as well, Martin.
I know, it's ridiculous. Is one of those replacements, Ash, going to be Theo Agard? I think I might need to go and see a neurologist or something. Honestly, my ability to speak the English language, I think it's because I'm getting grey hair in my beard, Ash. You see?
It's just throwing you off. Just throwing you off. I get it.
But will one of those replacements be Theo Agard from Luton Town, Ash? And do you know anything about him?
I mean, it's looking like it. Again, that's a report that's come out of nowhere, but it's getting stronger today. I see there was links to apparently, £4 or £5 million, which would be a significant investment for us to make. Haven't watched him too much. I know that he went from Wigan in League One up to Luton in the Championship. I think it was in the winter transfer window. And overall, when you look at his stats, he's got some pretty strong numbers in relation to kind of goals and assists. I think plays predominantly as a kind of attacking midfielder, but can drift out to the left as well. So would certainly offer an attacking dynamic to our midfield, which we've probably lacked. But if he is coming in, I do think we're going to see a big name go out the door, because we're really quite then going from a position of not having too many in midfield to then being quite heavy when you think we've got the likes of Cameron, Barron, Bailey, Raskin, Dio, Rothwell, Asgard. Doesn't really fly. So that would suggest to me that something might be in the offing for one of those players to move out.
Is that a worry then? You've just mentioned that midfield. Is that a worry with the players that we already have, and subsequently the players that look like they're coming in? If all that does happen, do you fear a bit for Bailey Rice this season?
So it's interesting that the question was posed on the member show on Tuesday around, do we think he'll get 15 plus games this season? And the more I've kind of thought about it since, I actually wonder if a loan might be the right move for him. Now, I know we've had really mixed success with loans in the past, but I do think he's at a stage in his career where he needs to play football. He's really stagnated, I think, because we've not given him first team exposure as much as we should have. So I would be quite comfortable if he signed an extension on his deal and then went to either another Premiership club in Scotland or maybe a Championship club down south. I don't know. But I think that would be best, because I think if we get to a position where he doesn't play very much next season, then we've kind of ruined a little bit of his talent, I think, and I think he'll struggle to make it at Rangers. So he's one that I could see. Yeah, I would agree with that. He's
And
one that I
I
think could
completely
move.
agree with that, Ash. I think he's at the stage.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt. I think he's at the
no,
stage
no,
now where he needs to be playing a significant amount of games.
yeah, because you look at the development of him. He was coming out there when he came into the academy, obviously from Motherwell. People were talking very highly of him as being the next big thing, and we've never really seen it because I don't think we've given him the opportunity to play a consistent run of games. He's been in and out of the squad and the odd minutes here and there. So no, I think if it's going to work for him at Rangers, wherever it is, he needs to play football this season to see how he develops. And if we don't, I think we've done him a bit of a disservice, to be honest.
Yeah, and I do know that he's been training like hell over the summer. I know he's been trying to bulk up a wee bit, get a bit of strength into him. I know put it this way: if it doesn't work this season for him, I don't think it'll be from a lack of trying, because I know that he's doing everything that he possibly can to try and get back into this Rangers team.
Yeah, and I would say he's never let us down when he's played. When he's played, he's caught the eye and he's done quite well. But obviously, the injury he picked up in the European game was a shame, because he'd been given a big opportunity that night, and again had done well till that happened. Um, and I've never watched him play and thought he's really poor or he's really struggled. I think he's just not had a chance to play consistently, which young players need. So I really hope he gets his chance this year, whether it's us or somebody else, and we're having a conversation next season around, is he a first team player?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And I also, what Brian's saying in the comments, he would just go somewhere else and then become an absolute superstar. You just know that's what would probably happen, because he's an
Rangers way.
incredibly talented footballer. AJ's asking, do you think we're signing Cody still while in talks with Wolves? This Cody rumour doesn't seem to be going anywhere, Ash. And again, it would be another player, 30, close to 30, in their 30s. I can't remember exactly what age he is, but it's another older, experienced player that we're looking at. Do you think we can have do you think we need to get that deal done?
So I'm a little bit mixed on it. I think if you look at it from one way, which is he is very experienced, he's played at a very high level of football, and I think he's naturally a leader. And I mentioned this the other night. The word culture came up so many times in Russell Martin's presser when he was announced, by him and by Patrick Stewart and the owners, etc. And I think there's a real recognition within the club that they really need to mix up the dynamic of the dressing room. They need to get new voices in there and new leadership. And I think Cody absolutely would fit that. And I think the likes of Rothwell, etc., do as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's still one that we're looking to do. The noises are that it was pretty much done. I don't know if the situation with Leicester, because they've obviously sacked Van Nistelrooy, I don't know if they've got a new manager yet, but that's probably held things up slightly. I know he's been doing a little bit of commentary at the Club World Championship, I believe. So there's a few things going on that might have just delayed that happening. But it sounds to me like it's one that will get done. And I do think that he'll be a very good leader for Rangers. And as long as he's got the right partnership in defence, he could be a very good player for us.
And that would be another centre back in the door if we managed to get him next to Fernandez. Obviously, John Souttar's going to be out. We don't know when he's going to return, although Russell Martin said more than likely before the Panathinaikos game, which will be good. We're obviously looking to offload Ben Davies as well at centre back. Clinton and Ciala's a young player coming through. So the defence is starting to look, especially if we get Cody in, the defence is starting to look a bit more beefy.
Yeah, I think if we get Cody in and we get DJ in, it's an absolute certainty that Proper and Davis will be gone. I think there's no way you carry that many central defenders, and then you throw into the mix that Tav probably is someone that will be used in that position as and when required. We've got that cover there. So no, the fact we're looking so strongly at potentially three centre backs coming in this window, to me suggested Davis and Proper thing is just a matter of time. And that will happen once we've got the reinforcements in the door. So I'm more comfortable if that's our defensive unit for next season than I was going into last season, which I think is probably about as positive as I can be.
Fair enough. Channel member, that was the most pathetic cough in the world there, wasn't it? Channel member Kevin Wilson, we should be spending money on Lennon Miller, not a player from Luton. It's a very good point. If we're going to be spending, is it 4 or 5 million on Agard from Luton, if that does go through Ash, should we not be just spending a couple more million on a young player like Lennon Miller for the future?
I'd do it if I had the checkbook. That's not a reflection of Asgard, not to suggest he's not a good player, but Lennon Miller has been there and done it in Scottish football. A very, very impressive young player. I think Motherwell probably wouldn't want to sell him to us, so there'd be a Rangers tax if we wanted to make that happen. And I also get the vibe from things I've read that actually the boy wants to go abroad, which you can't really criticise him for, given he's played in Scotland for a few years now, and we've seen other Scottish players go onto the continent and be really successful. So it's also a lifestyle thing as well. If you can go to Italy, you probably take that opportunity. So I think we've missed the boat on him. If we did it last season, I think it gets done. Motherwell would probably have taken a reasonable fee, but I think now he's worth a lot more money and might just be a little bit out of our reach in terms of the level of investment that would be required to get one player in the door from a Scottish team.
Yeah, quite possibly. Quite possibly. Stu Kelsall again is asking, do you think Martin will play a similar system to Southampton? I don't know if the Southampton formation, player roles, whatever, would work up here, Ash. Martin did say when he first came through the door that he's learned from mistakes that he's made at previous clubs. But do you think it will be something similar? I suppose Sunday will be a barometer of how Martin wants to play moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got certain philosophies that he sticks to, and you could see that run through, the different teams that he's coached. What was interesting is because I was quite critical when we were first looking at him, sort of saying I don't really like people that are rigid to one particular system because I think it leaves you exposed. And then I read his comment saying that he actually felt as though at Southampton he was too flexible and he actually changed too much tactically. So I thought, well, that's interesting. I've definitely misinterpreted that. So, no, I think that he'll have taken time away from the game, analysed what didn't work at Southampton, because a lot did go wrong. And I do think we'll see a better coach at Rangers. It is a different challenge, playing with Southampton in the Premier League than it is playing with Rangers in our league. And you just have to trust him that he's analysed our games. He's got a bit of familiarity with Scottish football. But in terms of like possession based, playing out from the back, goalkeeper being part of kind of building attacks, etc., I 100% think that's going to stay. What the actual physical formation, etc., looks like, I think might be a little bit more flexible, but I think the philosophies and how we play won't change really.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of talking about formations and styles of play. It's once you see it, you'll know. And again, I'm really looking forward, Ash, to the Bruges game on Sunday because I'm looking forward to obviously seeing a couple of these new signings. Hopefully, Max Aarons gets a start. Obviously, it'd be nice to see him in the flesh. Then what will he do with Tav if Aarons starts? How high a defensive line will he play? Because Bruges Champions League last season, good team. It's going to be a difficult game. So I think all in all, it will just be good to see how we're going to look moving forward. We've said for so long that we're such a slow build-up team, and players like Bayrami, how are they going to fit into the system? We'll be looking for every single answer on Sunday in this first pre-season game, Ash. I'm just buzzing to have Rangers back, to be honest.
That's it. And I kind of contradict myself because I've just said that Sunday won't mean a lot when competitive games come around, but come Monday we'll all be chatting like it does because we're just excited to have real football to talk about again. And I see Blue Fox there has put a question in that I'm sure you'll come to around the goalkeeping position. Because again, I think that's one where do you maybe read a little bit into that? Because that's a slightly different position. You know, if Kelly starts, is that him getting the nod? If Butland starts, is that him getting the nod? I'm sure he'll change the goalkeepers as pre-season develops. But I think that's a really interesting one to watch because it doesn't sound as though Butland's on the move. I don't see Kelly going, and I don't really hear us linked with any goalkeeper. So I've got the impression that he's going to go with those two next season unless something dramatic changes in terms of a transfer bid. So how that all plays out will be interesting to watch because obviously that position was a huge problem for us last year.
Well, yeah, and you're exactly right. That's with Blue Fox, and thank you again for the support. Kevin Wilson, Blue Fox, for the super chats. Thank you very much. No new goalkeeper rumours. Are you happy with Butland going into next season, Ash?
I would say I've accepted it rather than happy. I think probably the priority is in other places of the pitch from the manager's perspective. I think Butland has shown he can be good. The new goalkeeping coach coming in, hopefully, will stimulate something in Butland to get his confidence back and his concentration levels up. That's all you can really hope for. Kelly was an able deputy. I don't think, not being rude, I don't think he's as good a shot stopper as the likes of Butland, but he also wasn't throwing balls in the back of the net either. So I don't know how that's going to go. I probably would have preferred to see Butland move on and us bring a new number one in, but I just don't see that happening now. So I think grudgingly I'll accept that he's going to be there next year, but it wouldn't have been my preference going into the close season.
I do appreciate that you're probably working today, Ash, and we are now on 37 minutes. Just one final question for you, and it's a wee bit out there, actually. We focus on Butland's mistakes. We focus on Tav's mistakes. We focus on every single player's individual mistakes, right? And we tend to keep that feeling of, oh, for fuck's sake, Tav, or, oh, Butland again, we need a new goalkeeper. It's a bit of a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do we focus on these mistakes so much if we're winning cups and winning leagues? I can't really remember a time, Ash, where we focused so heavily on mistakes made by players that the same kind of mistakes that get made all around the world of football. These all get made all the time, but it's just the fact that we're not winning leagues. If we have a really, really strong season, are we talking about Butland punching one into the net against Man U? Are we talking about Maeda skinning Tav? Are we talking about Jeff Day not looking over his shoulder and missing Bruno Fernandez at the back post?
I think it's a good question. I think naturally when things aren't going well, the negative is amplified. I think the frustration with the likes of the Tav one you made there is that we've seen consistently the same mistakes happen. I think when new mistakes happen, you kind of accept it's part and parcel of football. But when you can almost predict these players are going to make these mistakes, I think that's when it boils over into frustration. And Mark's spot on. We'd be much more comfortable with some of the performances if at the end of the season it didn't really matter in the context because we were successful overall. There's just not a lot of room for the Rangers players to manoeuvre, sadly, because they've let us down on a few occasions in recent years. So we are a bit harder on them. We're a little bit less forgiving. Hopefully, this season will iron out some of those mistakes. And at the end of it, there'll be some shiny trophies aloft over some heads because that would make everyone feel a little bit better going into the summer.
Yeah. And I know, Lindsay, I know we talk about it because it keeps happening, but if it kept happening and we won a league or we won a cup, then I don't think we talk about it as much.
I suppose the argument, Martin, sorry, there is if it keeps happening, you don't win cups and you don't win.
Oh, yes, this is true. This is true.
That's probably part of the problem, I think.
This is true. I'm really disappointed in the comments today. Some people in the comments today because we're only on 68 likes, which, come on now, it's embarrassing for the Rabble. Come on, let's get that to 100, folks. Help the show out. We passed 14,000 subscribers yesterday. So I'm expecting at least 100 likes, for the show. Let's see if we can get those 100 likes in while I do the best outro, I think, of any show in the world. Never make a mistake, always get it spot on. So thank you very much, Ash, for joining me today and doing 10 minutes overtime.
That's absolutely fine. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Enjoyed the chat and the comments as well. So thank you for having me.
You just enjoy it because they absolutely take the mick out of me.
That makes it more enjoyable, I'll be honest. I mean, I've not had too much mick taken yet, but I'm sure it will come. I'm sure it will come.
Oh no! Oh yes, it will. It will. Just you wait till the season starts.
I was going to say maybe I haven't. I've just tuned it out. That might be probably more accurate, but that's fine. We'll pretend that's true.
Yeah. About 4-year time, multiple man, I expect to get to 15k. In about 4-year time, because it's got to start slowing down at some point, hasn't it? The subscriptions. I hope not. I hope it keeps going. I just open my mouth and let my belly rumble. Next week we're going to get 15,000 subscribers. But yeah, keep those likes coming, folks. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you're following on all the socials. All the links are in the description. If you want to help out independent Rangers media, we're looking to do all sorts of different things with the Rabble to bring you all sorts of different content. Then join as a member now. Again, links for that are in the description. Check out the shop as well. Get yourself probably the best travel mug there has ever been. And I don't mind saying that because it's true. I know Ash talks more sense, right? You don't need to, I'm here, I'm sitting right here. Nobody ever says, "Oh, Martin, that's a great point."
Do you know what? But it's because you're the host, Martin. Maybe one day you should come on not as the host, and you could be the one answering the questions. But maybe you should mix it up one day.
But well, then people will know that I really don't have a clue what I'm talking about if I answer questions.
Host for the most test. That's fine. You stay there. You stay doing what you're smashing it.
Yes. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but my face is getting slightly thinner. So I'm losing a wee bit of weight. No, I'm not. My face is getting fatter. Anyway, folks, we're on 97 likes. By the time I'm finished speaking, I want to be on 100. I don't accept anything less than 100 likes. Thank you, everybody, in the comments. I know I'm more nonsense. I know. Thank you to everybody in the comments. Thank you for all the continued support that we get. It really is phenomenal. Again, Ash, thank you very much. And we shall speak to you all very, very soon.